I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ms. Corporal, would you please call roll?
Mr. Kizak.
Here.
Ms. Payne.
Here.
Ms. Hannah.
Here.
Ms. Kane.
Here.
We also have Township Manager Ms. Tooley Cools, Assistant Manager Mr. Vala, Township Solicitor Mr. Esposito, and Township Engineer Mr. Kessler in attendance tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. A few announcements and special items. First, the next Board of Supervisors meeting will be Monday, June 13th, 2022 at 7 p.m. And we have an upcoming event. Our annual 4th of July parade will be July 4th at 9 a.m. The annual 4th of July parade is really an incredible event, something my family and I certainly look forward to every year. And so I would encourage everybody to come out and join us on July 4th for the 4th of July parade. I also want to take this opportunity to recognize our Public Works Department because this is National Public Works Week. For those of you that don't know, although I'm sure everybody does, our Public Works Department is focused on infrastructure, facilities, roads, parks, and all kinds of other services that are really of vital importance to our community. And so we just want to take this opportunity on the behalf of the Board of Supervisors to thank all of the members of our Public Works Department for all of the hard work that they do every day to keep our community safe and functioning. So thank you to our Public Works Department. And with that, we will move on to public comment on non-agenda items. This is public comment on non-agenda items only. Yes, ma'am, please come up, state your name and address. Just hold on one second. We got to get your microphone working.
Do you need me to repeat anything? No.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm very, very involved with RC3, very interested in the progress of that. So I've been going to all of the borough meetings, and I stand up over there and I express my concern. They told me since I was from over here, I should come over here and talk to you guys about it. They said they would like to collaborate with you guys and get your ideas and their ideas and put them together. And hopefully together you can make some impact to PennDOT on how this is going to be done to more satisfy the residents of both entities. So that's really all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comment, Mr. Warren.
Congratulations to the Public Works Department. I also thought that it was Police Appreciation Week or day. At any rate, every day is Police Appreciation Day, which was what I wanted to speak to you all about. Earlier last week, I had the opportunity to go to an event sponsored by the township, Coffee with a Cop, or some phrase like that, where the police department came to, in my case, our community, and there was an casual interchange, no real agenda, but an opportunity for residents to meet with the police department. They brought donuts and coffee, which was most appreciated. And there were, in this case, a number of officers. The four that did all the work were the four women officers who sat in the front and answered the questions and carried the program. The men sort of stood in the back and cheered them on. But it was a very worthwhile, a very productive exchange. I would encourage any of the township residents to look into it, take advantage of it. All there came a knowing more, appreciating more the work that the township police officers do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. I appreciate you sharing that. It is a great event, the Coffee with a Cop program, and so we're glad to hear that it was such a success. Is there any other public comment on non-agenda items? Yes, a gentleman in the back, I think you had your hand up first. Just if you can, please state your name and address.
Yes. Oh, excuse me. Yes, my name is Ed Preston, 917 Walnut Street in Humeville. I'm the president and chairman of the Bucks County and Pennsylvania Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. It is apparently National Public Work Day, which is why I'm here, actually. As you know, we built the memorial, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, over at Veterans Park. Your Public Works Department was far beyond anything that they could have done to make that a success. So I asked some of them here tonight, if you don't mind. Eric, we brought something for these guys in appreciation of all your help. Eric, thank you so much to you and all your guys for coming in. Basically, it's a picture of the memorial. I don't know if any of you were at the memorial for the service, but this is the lyrics to the song called The Promise, which was written by Jack Murphy, Vietnam Marine from 68 to 69, that we did during the service. But we really appreciate all of Middletown's support through the process, but really, you guys made everything perfect for us for that one day to give those guys their recognition. So we appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. That was really nice of you to do that and to be here. We appreciate having you, and we certainly echo the sentiment for everything the Public Works Department has done for that memorial, which is a fantastic memorial. Everybody should go visit it. So thank you. Any other public comment on non-agenda items? Yes.
Hi, I'm Greg Knott. I live at 308 Swift Road, Langhorne, PA. I think you remember me from talking about the intersection, Woodburn Road, about the traffic light. I just wanted to share a follow-up question. I know that June 6th, we're going to have the meeting with the neighborhoods to talk about this issue. I had a meeting with the assistant manager concerning my concerns and my evidence I brought for, and there was one thing I forgot to ask. He showed me the traffic report, which I was going through, and we talked about the amount of flow of traffic that was going through that warranted a light. I was wondering if you guys could provide information of the requirement is for a light and how much traffic flow was overall, so we could see how much, if we just met the requirement, we far exceed the requirement for a traffic light. If that could be provided in the June 6th meeting.
We can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on non-agenda? Yes.
Yeah. Paul Schneider, 233 North Bellevue Avenue, Langhorne. Also property owner in Flowers Mill. And I know you guys seem to be ahead of the curve in terms of RC3, in terms of when PennDOT's grand unveiling is intended to be. I know you've talked about July. Wondering if you've heard, we have heard nothing more in the borough, wondering if you've heard anything more here that could shed more light on it, since there are so many people who are concerned about it.
Yeah, I don't think we're privy to any information that you guys are not. I mean, I think the best we can tell you that they're targeting July, but we don't have a date. We've offered to let them use this building, this room, to hold that meeting, that presentation, and we'll continue to keep that offer open. But I don't have any more specific information, but we certainly will share that to the public as soon as we find out.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yes, sir.
My name is John, 308 Swift Road, and I just want to say a few points about the intersection or proposed light at the Swan Point intersection. I'm going to give you analysis. I do risk assessment, but I think that's too long. But I just want to be sure there were some things that were stated in the previous meeting that I checked out. I just want to be sure everybody knows what the true facts are. And I pity you in trying to make a decision, because what you're trying to do, I feel, is determine acceptable risk. And one of the factors of acceptable risk is feelings, and that's not really too quantifiable. But what I did hear is there are two exits out of Swan Point, White Swan Way and Swift Road. When I divide the line, I come up with about 91 homes out of the 250 that you should use Swift versus White Swan. I don't know if that's ever been looked at as why people don't use White Swan as an alternate. The second thing was, is it a possibility as a risk reduction measure to try reduce speed limit from 332, Route 332 to Ellis to 25 miles an hour? I don't know if that's a possibility or not. Because what I was concerned about if your objective is to reduce accidents, one of the things I looked up was roundabout. They reduce accidents by 22% and fatalities to 0, but that's not a viable risk reduction measure. One of the things is that traffic lights do. They serve several safe purposes. They direct vehicle traffic and they help guide pedestrian traffic. Purpose is to assist with traffic movement. They are a huge safety concern, huge, when traffic lights are not observed or obeyed. So one of the methodologies we use is a what-if analysis. So if I have someone that is the light making a left-hand turn from Swift Road into Woodburn, and it's on the phone, of course, hands-free, have a nice conversation, the light turns green. The person coming down from 332, it's on a decline, it's accelerating, and if force equals mass times acceleration, that person tries to beat the light and misses, I think it had a catastrophic. So what we're looking at is probability, and I say to myself, I'm at that 332 light maybe 5 minutes out of 24 hours a day. I've witnessed 3 of these types of accidents, 332, and a near miss where a huge dump truck was crossing the road, and if everybody didn't start beeping their horn, I don't know what would have happened. So I would just ask the board to just look at those items in their review. Thank you.
Can I just ask you, just out of curiosity, and I appreciate that information. Certainly, we're going to take everything into consideration that we hear and that we learn. What, if you don't mind telling me, what is your objection to the traffic light? Why is it that you don't want a traffic light there?
I just think for that reason itself, the one reason itself that when people make a left-hand turn, they take the left light. I don't feel it's a risk for me for when I drive. I drive a lot in my job. The light itself is that scenario. That would be at a catastrophic event. I think that if we can do something else, reduce that. I'm afraid of that because the letter that came in here says the lights will be synchronized. And if you know, on 332, they're synchronized. And there's so many people that try to beat that light. So if I'm not part of the neighborhood, and I try to come through Woodburn Road, and I understand if I can do 55, whatever number that is, I can beat all the lights, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I'm afraid of. And let me just say, whatever decision you make is acceptable to me. I just want to be sure that that's looked at too. And maybe the 25 mile an hour, and I never brought up why people aren't using the White Swan Way. Because they said one of the things is death trap, where there's people that died on 32, one of the accidents, and I looked up the accidents, they said they were increasing. Well, we went through 2 years of a pandemic. People were living at home. How do we have an increase in accidents during that period of time, right? And when I looked at police records, I looked it up, for about 4.5 years, there's 10 of them.
A lot of knowledge and expertise in this particular area, and I was just curious I understand your perspective.
That's the one reason.
I appreciate it.
I'd rather have the fender benders than a catastrophic event.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, and that's all. And we're dealing with probability, of course, and we don't know when it's going to happen.
Sure.
Or if. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment on non-agenda items?
He's right. Listen to that.
Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda items. Item A, consideration of authorizing payment of the May 16th bills list in the amount of $886,315.67. Item B, consideration of approving the May 2nd, 2022 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Item C, consideration of approving payment certificate number 10 for the Langhorne Gables Drainage Improvement Project in the amount of $37,213.42, which incorporates change order number 6 in the amount of negative $7,267.50 for which quantities. Item D, consideration of approving resolution number 22-15R, authorizing applications to the DCED Watershed Restoration and Protection Program to restore basin at Delaware Park. And consideration of approving resolution number 22-16R, authorizing Lincoln Plaza Shopping Center Sewage Facilities Planning Module Exemption Mailer. Is there a motion on the consent agenda items?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. There was on the agenda consideration of preliminary and final land development approval for the Bally site on Middletown Boulevard. They have withdrawn from tonight's meetings. That will not be considered tonight, so we will move on to item 6, which is consideration of authorizing award of the 2022 road program bid with alternates number 1 and number 2 to James D. Morrissey, Inc. in the amount of $1,759,680.20. Mr. Kessler? Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Tonight, we have before you a request to authorize the award for the 2022 road program. A few weeks ago, we went through the list of roads that are included with this year's program, and compared to years past, it really emphasizes road paving. In past years, we've kind of combined road paving and ADA ramp construction, so just the way that we order how we do those projects. This year really focuses on taking lead on the road paving of the roads throughout the township. So the bids were open on May 3rd. We reviewed the received bids, and the lowest qualified bid was James D. Morrissey. We received 3 total bids, and we also review them per our township RCO, as well as any other required documents that I have to provide. So tonight, we have before you the lowest qualified bid, James D. Morrissey, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have for this year's program.
Do you want to go over real quickly what the alternate bids entail?
Yes, the alternate number 1 is for work at Noakes Park. The main parking lot at the park there has some drainage issues, as many people are aware that visit there regularly. So this is going to focus on installing and improving the drainage in that parking lot, and then after that work is done, the whole parking lot will be repaved and striped. And then alternate number 2 that's included is for work at the senior center, 2 pickleball courts and a half-court basketball court to be installed for use at the senior center there.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. Do any other board members have questions for Mr. Kessler about the road improvement program? If not, I will accept a motion.
I make a motion to award the base bid, alternative bid number 1, and alternative bid number 2 for the 2022 road program to the total amount of $1,759,680.20 to James D. Morrissey, Incorporated.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions at this time? Seeing none, any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consideration of adopting the Fire Services Strategic Plan. Mr. Valla.
Good evening, Board. So tonight before you is a draft copy of the Fire Services Strategic Plan. For those in the community who might be familiar, last year the Board of Supervisors commissioned a study to do a fire services study that's in partnership with all 4 of our local fire companies, volunteer fire companies, as well as our paid daytime staff, Middletown 244. That study made a series of recommendations, and the Board subsequently decided earlier this year in January to re-engage the consultant who performed last year's study to facilitate a strategic plan. And so tonight before you is a draft copy of that strategic plan, and I will give you a little bit of an overview and some highlights. So the contents of this plan are really reflective of a one-day strategic planning workshop that was held here in this room. It was an advertised meeting. We broke everybody up into 4 groups, which I will explain those groups later. But it consisted of several members of the Board of Supervisors, 4 representatives from each of our 4 volunteer fire companies, staff from our Middletown 244, as well as staff from Township Administration. And for those who don't know, just to reiterate, Fire Services Middle had, those were structure and funding, the department head team, volunteer recruitment, staffing and retention, as well as performance measures. And beyond those initiatives, like I said, we did the mission and values, and then each of those has several goals and subsequent objectives. And so I won't read all of them through, But just to give you kind of a flavor, these were the goals that were discussed within each of those 4 initiatives. And each of these goals has a series of objectives that will all work towards accomplishing that goal. And each one has a timeline attached to it. So all told, there's about 13 goals across the 4 categories. The scope of the strategic plan is about 15 months, spanning through about the end of next summer, summer of '23. So all of these goals will help address some of the issue areas that were identified in the study, as well as build a foundation for the long-term vitality of the volunteer fire service, and also identifying ways for our paid daytime staff to continue supporting them in the best way possible. So just looking at some next steps, we did put this out to everybody who participated in that workshop. We heard feedback from 2 of the volunteer fire companies. One identified a need to include the volunteer relief associations, particularly on the foreign fire insurance and workers' comp issues, which I know have been discussed. As well as another one mentioned consolidating the timelines. I don't think, in my opinion, either of these derail the plan before you. I would certainly recommend moving forward with adopting this plan so we can move into the implementation phase. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Valla. And I think I mentioned this before at a prior meeting, but I'll just reiterate what a great opportunity it was to get all these stakeholders together in a room dedicated to a common goal. And I really do think we did an effective and successful job at mapping out a strategy for the future of fire services in this community. And I'm very optimistic based on the progress we made that day and based on this strategic plan that we now have before us. Do any board members have questions for Mr. Valla or comments they want to make?
I just wanted to reiterate also, I don't have a question. I just thought it was a very productive meeting. It actually exceeded my expectations, I thought. And I thought it was a really great opportunity to get all the stakeholders together and really discuss and brainstorm together. And I think that, you know, this is a great start for us, and I'm looking forward to see where this is going. Appreciate it.
Okay, then I'll actually move to adopt the 2022 Middletown Township Fire Services Strategic Plan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Any questions from the public? Yes, Mr. Warren.
I commend this, I think, so far. I just had a couple clarifications. In the initial report that I was able to have a copy of, the 43-page or whatever, that specifically talked about a number of items, some of which I assume, or I'm not assume, I know from what Mr. Valla said were addressed in that one-day session. My question was, one, can I get a copy of this report at some time? Not right now, but next couple days. Can I have a copy of that? Okay. And two, did I understand over the next year and a half, 12 to 15 months, I may have misunderstood, but that's when we're going to essentially fling out those number of goals. Is that correct?
Yeah, the plan, and credit to the facilitators, is extremely detailed in terms of goals and benchmarks. And so the way we have this set up is we have deadlines that begin now and continue all throughout the year with the goal of meeting certain objectives by these certain deadlines, which if we manage to stick to them all, we will have, I think, accomplished most of our goals by this time next year, fall 2023. I mean, that's the plan, and I think it's realistic. I can say that, you know, I have a meeting with all of the chiefs from the various fire companies this week, which was one of the first steps in our process. So yes, there are very, very clear and distinct goals and timelines and deadlines.
Okay, great. And the initial report, the first one, scattered throughout it was, unless something's done it's conceivable that there could be an $11 million tax increase each year to pay for paid. These things aren't happening. Is that still scattered throughout? And did this plan address any of those potentials?
No, not specifically. Certainly within this plan, very much included is the conversation of what is the funding that the volunteer fire companies require, and part of the process is figuring out how to get them the funding they need so that they can continue to be sustainable.
Right.
Obviously, the nuclear scenario, if we can't accomplish that and the township has to begin providing full-time fire services for the company, I assume that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Obviously, the goal is to avoid that scenario. And I think the one thing that I'm heartened by is that we have the commitment of everybody who was in the room that day at trying to prevent that from happening. So it's not going to be easy.
Yes.
Making sure these fire companies have the funding they need is going to be a challenge, certainly, and we've got a lot of questions we have to answer and a lot of things we have to work through. But the goal certainly is to continue to provide fire services through a combination of volunteer supported by township staff for as long as we can.
Right. Excellent, and good luck, and we'll get benchmark updates, I'm sure, as this goes along. The first thing, that first report had a number of come to Jesus steps here that need to be addressed and need to be accepted, difficult decisions on all or some of the 4 companies. So I wish you all well, and I would like to get a copy of it, and we'll keep going. It's the alternative is not good.
I think that meeting, one of the things that was most viable at that meeting is it forced all of us to open our eyes. You know, obviously we all read the report, but for all of us involved to sit in a room and talk to one another and look at each other in the eyes and talk through some of these things. And then once we got beyond that, then say, okay, now it's time to refocus and figure out how do we fix it. And so that's where we are now, and that's the direction we're moving.
Excellent. Stay on.
Thanks. Do we still have to vote? There's been a motion and a second? Okay.
Yeah, just call the question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Vallot. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing a contract with Keystone Floor Products of Bensalem, Pennsylvania for public meeting room carpeting. And these next 3 agenda items are all part of the public hall overhaul that we discussed at a previous meeting.
Okay,
Ms.
I'm going
Giolli-Coles.
to take the first 2 that are specifically related to the project, and then Chad's going to come up for the TriCaster. So as the chairperson mentioned, we have embarked upon modernizing this public meeting room. We've been here for more than 20 years, and we started with some furnishings. At night, you have before you 2 additional contracts. You'll recall that the budget is $100,000 for this project. We obviously, like everyone else, have supply chain issues, but we are very close to the budget. We're at about 106 right now after these 2 contracts. The only additional thing we have to purchase this year will be chairs that you're sitting in right now, so I'll be bringing them to you forward in the future. One of the next couple of meetings, it's not as urgent from a time constraint. But the first contract is carpeting, and so we have 3 separate CoStars vendors that we obtained quotes from. The low bidder that we are recommending is Keystone Floor Products from Bensalem. We did use this firm for carpeting in the finance department upstairs, so we're happy with the work product, and so I would like to recommend moving forward. I do have a sample here if anyone in the community wants to take a look at it, but it will all go with the theme that you've already established with the last project.
And for those of you that don't know, I'm colorblind, so I had no say whatsoever in the choice of carpeting or wood or any of those things. So I'm entirely deferring to Ms. Giolli-Coles' aesthetic eye to select these things. But what's that?
It's hot pink.
It's hot pink, I'm told. Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Giolli-Coles about this item? And if not, I can accept a motion.
I move to approve a contract with Keystone Floor Products of Bensalem, PA in the amount of $11,234.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Ms. Dioli-Cools, you want to take the second one?
Yeah, sure. So this next item is audio-visual upgrades for the meeting room, and I think this is probably one of the critical components of this modernization so that we will be able to have a very efficient way to continue to show the public when they're here in the meeting room what's going on. We're going to be replacing what we see now as the projector and the screen, and we're going to be replacing that with a 98-inch display. There also will be a display on this wall, so for those people who are in the audience, they will be able to see both ways instead of the people who are sitting over here having a difficult time seeing. In addition, we are upgrading at each of your 5 spots at the new dais, there will be a 10-inch screen. And there will also be screens on the 2 flanking desks so that you as elected officials will be able to see what is being displayed on the screen. So you'll see it in front of you. The public will see it at the 2 screens. There's also, there are also all of the wiring that is related to bringing those individual screens to the dais, as well as there are going to be ports in so you'll each have a port in front of you, and each of the flanking desks will have power, will have a USB charging station. There also will be HDMI hookups so that, basically at the lectern and at all spots on the dais and the 2 flanking desks, everyone will be able to be hooked into the system. So it really should, it really should help. One additional item that is in here is right now you can see that we have 2 cameras that are right down there, and then there's one over right shoulder. One of the things that we have a problem with is that someone is speaking at the podium. There's not a direct shot at them, right? If you ever look at the replay, it's sort of like they're looking off to the side. So we are going to also incorporate in the accent wall behind you a camera. So we'll have a 4th camera now. And that just creates for a better video production and a better ability to cover what's going on. As you saw tonight, when Ed Preston came up and gave the presentation to Public Works, with a better camera, we'll be able to capture those types of things. So I think that's pretty much it. There's a lot of, installation and wiring. I mentioned before, our Public Works Department is going to be doing a lot of the legwork to get the meeting room ready. Just for the public, we are planning to have our June meeting here in this room, and then we are going to shut the meeting room down. We'll be holding a July meeting upstairs. Hopefully, we don't have any major controversial topics, because if we do expect a turnout, we might have to go someplace else. And our hope is that we'll be able to be back in here for the August meeting. So that's that. This is also a CoStarz vendor. It's the Laro Corporation. We have been using them for our AV system. They do a lot of work all over the state, in the region. They do the work at the county. So we have great experience with them. So I would recommend moving forward with that.
Thank you, Ms. Dioli-Cools. Are there any questions from any board members? If not, I can accept a motion.
I move to approve a contract with Laro Corporation of Norristown, PA at a cost of $46,613.40.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any board questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing a contract with the Laro Corporation, Norristown, PA for production switcher. Mr. McGee.
Good evening. How are you doing? So I am coming before you to get our TriCaster production switcher replaced. For the past few months, we've been having some major issues with our streaming and recording. our streaming is just stopping on its own. The recording, even local, we record at 3 different spots, so that's why you don't see the difference of what we've thrown onto the TV and everything, but the recording that's directly on the switcher, if you go to play it back, there's constant freezes, there's a lot of buffering happening. I had 3 contractors look at this and figure out what's going on, and it's all related to, they're saying it's just hardware failure. We were planning on replacing this switcher next year, but we're at the point where we do need to probably replace it this year and get our production back up and running properly. This new switcher will offer us a lot more features for when streaming, and so this is also through Lolero. They quoted us $25,063.22. It comes with a 2-year warranty, 24/7 support. So just recommend for the board to approve to replace the production switcher.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. Yeah, I mean, I know this was not something that was necessarily contemplated or expected for this year, but
Correct. That is correct.
If we've learned anything, it is absolutely vital that we be able to stream these meetings. Access to these meetings via live stream is essential. The amount of people that not only watch but also participate in these meetings in that fashion has obviously grown since COVID and has continued to happen even after the end of the pandemic. So this, I believe, is a necessity. We've gotten a lot of complaints, I would say, from members of the public that have had issues. So
That is correct.
I think this is something we have to do. So I'll move to approve a contract with the Laro Corporation of Norristown, Pennsylvania for the production switcher at a cost of $25,063.22. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any questions for Mr. McGee? Any questions from the public? Been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. McGee.
Thank you.
And that brings us to other business. And Mr. Ennis has an item to address.
Good evening, Supervisors. There is an application scheduled next week, May 25th, in front of the Zoning Hearing Board. Is application 2217, and it concerns the property at 575 Langhorne, Newtown Road. Raising this application to your attention because one of the variances that the applicant is requesting is zoning relief to allow for prohibited activities within a FEMA map floodplain. So you can perhaps maintain neutrality or call for a vote to send the township solicitor in opposition to this application.
Thank you, Mr. Ennis. So first, what I'll do is make a motion to consider sending the township solicitor to the zoning hearing board to oppose the application related to 575 Langhorne Newtown Road. And then I would make a motion to actually send the township solicitor to the zoning hearing board to consider that zoning hearing board application. Is there a second on both adding this as an agenda item and on the motion itself to send Mr. Esposito, the township solicitor?
I'll second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions for Mr. Ennis or Mr. Esposito for that matter? Any questions from the public? Yeah, Mr. Ennis, could you just clarify?
Sure. So the property at 575 Langhorne Newtown Road, you may have noticed it as you're traveling from this direction up to Newtown. There is a lot of storage of construction equipment and vehicles, as well as construction-related debris. Those are activities that are not allowed at that particular area of the property because they're fully within a FEMA map floodplain. So during a flood event, there is a potential for those things to become buoyant and travel downstream.
Thank you, Mr. Ennis. Thank you, Mr. Warren. Any other questions? There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Ennis.
Thank you.
Moving on with other business. Mr. Kessler.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Mr. Esposito.
Just wanted to announce that the board held an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss litigation matters.
Thank you. Ms. Sealy-Coles.
I would just like to recognize our Public Works team on National Public Works Week. They are the best. Great group of guys, hardworking, so shout out to them.
Oh, thank you. Ms. Hannah.
I just wanted to say thank you to the Public Works and also Parks and Rec. I attended an event on Friday evening. It was the community sports block party. It was awesome. It was amazing to see the families and the kids out finally after this pandemic acting like families and kids, and you guys did an amazing job. It was such a great collaboration between all the departments. It was very enjoyable, and there were so many smiles. That was awesome. And then also on May 9th, the Human Relations Commission did a presentation, their first community conversation, talking about understanding the Native American experience. I thought that was very informative. There's opportunities for the community to be more involved and have a greater awareness of their experience by participating in a book study, and also there'll be a film event, so make sure you check out the Public Works there. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Ms. Payne.
I just wanted to take a second to remember Mr. Durant. It was 2 years ago that we honored him and declared the month of May Mr. Durant Month. For those that don't know, Mr. Durant was a well-known community member who volunteered a lot of his time in the Levittown area with the Neshaminy School District, coaching and even volunteering as in the lunchroom. As he got older. So I just wanted to remind everyone that he's still a very prominent community member and how many lives he touched. And in his honor, I am challenging everybody to do a random act of kindness before the month is over. And just I wanted to take a second to remember how special he was. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. Ms. Kane.
I would just like to reiterate thank you to our Public Works Department. They really do a really phenomenal job around our township. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal.
See, I have to stop going last because I just say the same things. I just wanted to shout out also to the Public Works. You are just such an important part of our township, and we thank you for all your work.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, I think everybody knows a lot of the things that they do, but what I personally would like to thank them for is that in addition to all of their other responsibilities, which occupy them constantly, we're constantly throwing new things at them. And you know, the overhaul of the public hall is a perfect example where we're embarking on this project, and it requires the Public Works Department to come in here and do a ton of work with the stage and the wiring and all kinds of other things. And those things kind of happen behind the scenes all the time. I mean, everybody knows that, you know, their streets get plowed and the grass gets mowed and, you know, bridges get built and all the other things that they do. But there's sort of this behind the scenes constant stuff that we as supervisors are always throwing at these guys, and they never say no. They always do it, and it's on top of everything else they do. So we're really fortunate in this township to have such a great team. So thank you guys, and we're happy to acknowledge you this week. With that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
We're adjourned.